Hello everybody, and welcome to another Flaming Dice Reviews video. My name is Matt, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of the 2016 Kennerspiel de Jahres nominees, and that is Isle of Skye, from Chieftain to King. Now, I had never played Isle of Skye until just a few days ago, and I've enjoyed it so much that I've played it multiple times, and I wanted to do a review on it since it's up for such a big award. So we're going to take a look at the game, and then I'll meet you back here for my final thoughts as always. I'll see you then. Now, as always, the very first thing that we're going to do is take a look at what comes inside of the game. And in the Isle of Skye, of course, you have your rule book, you have your player screens. There's one for each of the 2 to 5 players. You have money in 4 different denominations, 1, 2, 5, and 10. You have a double-sided playing board, and this serves as a round tracker and to show what kind of things score during each round. This is, of course, the small round tracker. It moves back and forth. You have your different scoring tiles, and that's one of the best things about this game is how many different scoring tiles are in it. So each game is going to be different because each game you choose 4 of these scoring tiles, and there's 16 of them. You have your first player marker, you have your starting tiles, which are castles, and one of those goes to each player. You have your hatchet tiles, and those are used to, we're going to take a look at those closer in just a bit, but those are used to discard one of the tiles you draw. You have your player markers that go on the score track. Then you have the tiles themselves, and they have a beautiful backing, and they're all very, very unique, and a bag to put them all in. Now, the first part of the game that we're going to look at in detail is the player board, and this is probably the most important piece of the game. Now, you may notice these little platters or plates. These are the rounds, and this is your round tracker. Now, also, if you remember from earlier in the video, these windows up here were blank. Now we've chosen 4 of these scoring tiles at random to put up here, and I'll show you how you score victory points in the game as you lay out your tiles. So for round 1, you're only going to score for A, and A is tiles connected to your castle piece via roads. Whenever you get to round 2, you're only going to score for the most gold. So the player with the most gold is going to get 5 victory points. The player with the second most gold is going to get 2 victory points. And this just repeats. So on round 3, you're going to score for A and C. C is going to be 1 victory point per sheep in your playing area. And so on and so forth. I will explain this one just so in case you're curious. This is 2 victory points per square of 4 tiles that you have together in this particular pattern. It's just a perfect square. So as the rounds progress, different things are going to score, so you have to plan ahead. While you're bidding, and we'll get to that, or not bidding, but while you're purchasing tiles, you might purchase something that won't necessarily help you this round, but will help you next round. And again, we're going to talk about that in just a moment, but just remember that in the future. There's also a catch-up mechanism in this game, and you may notice these pieces of gold up here. Starting in round 3, players get 1 gold for each player ahead of them on the round tracker, or correction, on the victory point tracker. So in this scenario, which they would probably be further along by round 3, but if they weren't, blue would get 2 extra gold because 2 players are ahead of him on the victory point track. Now, before we go any further with the game, let's take a look at the actual tiles. Now, during each round, every player is going to draw 3 tiles from the bag, and these are going to be used with the game's economic system of being able to purchase tiles from other players. So even though you draw 3, you might not be able to play 3. You can purchase up to 1 from another player, however that's not mandatory, and then you have the 3 that you drew. One of them is going to be discarded. Now, if no other player buys your tiles, then you'll be able to play 3 if you purchased from another player. If the other players buy your tiles, you might only be able to play 1. You might be able to play none on that turn. So how you manage this economic system is important. But before we go too deep into that, let's actually just look at the tiles themselves. So the players start with a castle tile, and that castle tile gives a player 5 income on their turn. And you may see this little whiskey barrel here, and each whiskey barrel tile that is connected with the castle gets a player +1 income during that phase. So instead of only getting 5 income during the first phase of the round, that player is going to get 8 income. Now again, that money is very important because of the economical standpoint. Now there's also, you may remember that we got one of the scoring tiles that we drew for this game, made it so that during the rounds that this scoring tile is scored, players get points based on how many tiles are connected to a player's castle. And in this case we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tiles connected to the castle via roads. That portion is important. So in this case, that player would get 7 points. Now you may notice all the different types of landscape on here. Very similar to Carcassonne in that manner. You have your grasslands, you have your mountains, you have your bodies of water. Here is a completed body of water with a lighthouse. So let's talk about the symbols now that we're on it. We've got lighthouses, we have farms, and we have animals. So the sheep and the cattle, they're very important. And if you remember, one of the other scoring tiles that we had was victory points for each sheep. So if this was one of the rounds where sheep were scored, you can see 2 sheep up here on this tile. So that player would get 2 victory points. Now over here on the top right, we have these small squat towers, and I'm not sure about the pronunciation of those. It's B-R-O-C-H, broach, I'm not sure. But at the end of the game, these tiles with scrolls on them score victory points. So in this case, a player would get 1 victory point for each one of these small towers that they have in their amongst their tiles. So as the game progresses, obviously the area gets bigger. And even though I've compared this game to Carcassonne, it is different in that each player has their own area. They're not building one collective tile area. Now one of the most interesting portions of Isle of Skye is the economic portion and buying tiles from other players. So during each round, players are going to draw 3 tiles from the bag O tiles. And they place those 3 tiles in front of their player screen. Now I'm going to turn them so that they're more visible to the camera. So here we have a tile that has a scroll on it, which will get victory points at the end of the game. We have a tile that has a whiskey barrel, which if you recall, those get you more income at the beginning of each round. And then we have a tile here with 3 sheep. So if it was a game where one of the scoring tiles had animals on it, or was an animal heavy game, that might be a hot commodity. Now during each one of these rounds, the players have to use their hatchet token. And their hatchet token basically discards one of these tiles. So the player might decide, I don't want Jimmy to get this tile that has the income, he's got enough money, so I'm going to put my hatchet behind there. They also have to put a certain amount of money on these other tiles. Now this is very cool, because once everybody has placed these, the player tiles or the player screens are removed. The one that has the hatchet is discarded. Now, starting with the first player, players go around the table and have an option to buy a tile from another player. They can only buy 1. So I have set 5 and 2 here, so 7 for this tile. That's the price of that tile for other players to buy. And I've only set a price of 2 for this one. So on the other player's turn, as we go around, if they want these tiles, they have to pay me these prices. Well, you ask, why wouldn't you just jack the price up and put a bunch of money on these tiles? Because if no one buys these tiles from you, you buy them. This money that you've placed when you set the price actually goes to the bank, and then you get to keep these 2 tiles, and you'll place them in your player area. Welcome back, everybody. Now that we've seen how Isle of Skye plays, let's talk about my final thoughts. Well, again, I had never played Isle of Skye until just here recently, and I've enjoyed it so much that we've been on kind of a playing spree with it. And one of the best things about Isle of Skye is just how replayable it is. With the scoring tiles, there's just an endless possibility of ways for each one of the rounds to score victory points, and that adds a ton of replayability to the game. Add to the fact that the board or player area, I should say, is very dynamic. It's very reminiscent of Carcassonne, actually. You have the roads that need to be connected in certain scenarios. You have a lot of the victory or the scoring tiles have it to where when land masses or landscapes are completed, like a body of water or a mountain or grassland, then you can score points with those. And just the tiles themselves, as far as the size, the heft, it's very, very much like Carcassonne, which is a game that I've always enjoyed. However, unlike Carcassonne, there's a lot more to the game, because every round the players are drawing 3 tiles, and then you have to set your prices, and you have to discard one of them using your little hatchet token. It's very, very, very unique in that manner. Another thing that's very unique is the way that the prices are set for the tiles. Sure, you can buy a tile one time on your turn from any other player, but if that player has a lot of money and really needs one of their tiles, they can put a lot of money on there to try to prevent other players from being able to buy it, so they can keep it for themselves. You can try that with both of your tiles that are available for sale. However, one of the most unique things about this system is that if the tiles are not purchased by other players, all of that money that you've put on those tiles is then given to the bank. So it's essentially you're buying your own tile. So that adds a very, very deep strategy to that portion of the game, because while you want to add enough money to deter other players, you don't want to add so much money that you go broke if you end up having to buy both of yours. Of course, the income is very easy to get because you get it at the beginning of the round based on the number of whiskey barrel tiles connected to your castle via roads. So with the victory points, or with the money only getting 1 victory point per 5 gold at the end of the game, it's actually better to just spend it because you're going to make more. Another thing this has, which I'm not normally too crazy about, is that catch-up mechanism where players that are behind other players on the scoring track make more money. I'm lukewarm about that, but I don't mind it in this game. And Isle of Skye is just, even though all of the individual pieces are good to great, this is one of those games that's just the sum is way better than the individual parts. The game is super fun, and no 2 games are alike, and that is just awesome. Now, the game does recommend that you play with a certain set of scoring tiles, and I have played with that multiple times, but once you have experienced players with the games are never going to be the same. The games are never going to be the same even if you use those recommended tiles, just because the playing area is so dynamic, just like Carcassonne. Well, I really enjoyed Isle of Skye, and if you enjoy tile laying games, strategy games, and even though it's not bidding, if you like these economical games, I guess I should say, you should really check it out. This definitely deserved this huge nomination that it got this year. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and visit us at flamingdicereviews.com, at facebook.com/flamingdicereviews, and follow us on Twitter at flamingdicerev. That's Flaming Dice REV. Have the victory points. Let's